There are 63 games on the Big Ten Conference schedule. 63. Three most likely will count toward a championship. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We break down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis because of your help, your support, your contribution, your engagement. Please call one of the call-in shows Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, and especially our big Saturday wrap-up of college football after the primetime games. All right, let's get to it. At the Big House on Saturday, Penn State 6.5-point underdog, undefeated, taking on undefeated Michigan. Let's look at the matchups, but let's first explain our opening comment. 63 games played in the Big Ten every year. We're going to pinpoint it down to 3 games that count toward the championship. The Big Ten Western Division is cute, it's competitive, it's fun, it's a melee, but it's most likely going to be a free-for-all with everyone winning against everyone else, no dominant team and no real contender unless they can pull off a heck of an upset at the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis. It comes down to Ohio State, Penn State, the game at the end of the year, and the game that we're going to witness at noon Eastern time in the Big House. Penn State at Michigan. The Nittany Lions are a 6.5-point dog. When we look at the personnel on both sides of the ball for each of these teams, I see extremely comparable talent on both sides of the ball. Check out the recruiting rankings. Just look at the teams play, and you see comparable talent. It should be an outstanding game in Ann Arbor. However, there might be some edges that we can point to in sizing up this matchup. Let's look at the quarterbacks first and foremost. You got Sean Clifford with a ton of experience. You've got J.J. McCarthy taking over the reins of the starting job at Michigan just a couple weeks ago, although he played significant time in meaningful games, of course, in 2021. J.J. McCarthy right now has the best completion percentage in America at 71%. Sean Clifford and Penn State down the line at 66th in the country in completion percentage. Pass efficiency, Michigan's got a top 12 pass efficiency mark. Penn State's at number 49. You would think that the experienced quarterback would be the guy that doesn't make mistakes, and that would be the probability for the inexperienced quarterback. But J.J. McCarthy threw his first interception. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Threw his first pick last week against Indiana. Sean Clifford, known for not necessarily throwing a ton of interceptions, but at the worst times. This season, he's only thrown 2 in 137 pass attempts, but one did come in a crucial spot against Purdue on the road, in which it looked like at the time, with about 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, like he blew the game with a pick six, an awful throw. And if you check out the final 4 drives for Sean Clifford and Penn State, he basically on 3 of the drives missed on everything, missed on every meaningful throw, and basically came very close to throwing the ball game away. However, Sean Clifford in the clutch, his final 4 throws on the last drive, he was money, and Penn State pulled out the win. Sean Clifford, J.J. McCarthy, it's going to be interesting to see how those two play in a big-time spot. The 2 head coaches are both known for losing top 10 matchups, but most of those coming on the road. So Jim Harbaugh doesn't have to worry with that issue this week, of course, playing in Ann Arbor. James Franklin has a deplorable record against top 10 opponents on the road away from Happy Valley, so he's going to have to deal with that monkey on his back. The running games intrigue me because they both have outstanding rushing attacks, especially Michigan. And I trust Michigan's more for a number of reasons. They've got an offensive line that won the Joe Moore Award last year. They lost a couple players from that, but they bring in Oluwatimi, one of the best centers in the country from Virginia, and he's been outstanding. On the flip side, Penn State has struggled rushing the football pretty much since James Franklin showed up. But this season, Penn State might have its best rushing attack since Joe Pa was around. And I'm not just talking about one dynamic player, because the first thing that you're thinking about is probably, Mark, Saquon Barkley. He was amazing. Yes, he was a rushing attack unto himself. He had to make guys miss. He had to be a Superman. He was a first-round NFL draft pick. He was a special generational talent. But in terms of an entire rushing attack, Penn State is better right now than they've been in years. The offensive line is run blocking well, And they've got Nick Singleton, the number 1 rated running back coming out of high school. He's at 7.3 yards per carry. And also Katron Allen, another freshman, is running extremely well. The Penn State rushing attack has gone from bottom 5 in the nation to top 30 in the nation. But how will they respond against a Michigan defense and 2 freshman running backs on the road in the big house, big spot, big matchup of unbeaten teams versus what we're seeing out of Michigan? Blake Corum went from being the guy that you throw swing passes to, who runs 12 or 15 times a game because Hassan Haskins was the horse last season, to Blake Corum's the horse. So he's not just the guy that makes defenses miss in the open field. Check out the run against Indiana in particular. He is that elusive back, the guy that can cut on a dime, but he's also a workhorse, and he's proud of it. For the past 3 games, he has run the ball between 22 and 30 times. So Blake Corum is the proven commodity. Singleton and Allen with an improved offensive line. When you look at the rushing attack, it is intriguing to see the Michigan Wolverines not just run the football on anybody, but go to Iowa City and even run the ball against an Iowa defense that is stingy against the run. 172 yards for the Wolverines at Iowa. All right, I am so enthralled in the matchups on the outside, whether it's the Penn State wide receivers and tight end, Brenton Strange, against Michigan's secondary, or Michigan's wide receivers against the Penn State secondary. Either case, I think we're looking at 4 units that are all top 3 in the conference. So Michigan showed, even though they haven't played prolific passing attacks, they did show against Maryland, and they've got some dudes that can really go get it. Raheem Jarrett at the front of the line and Talia Tagovailoa can sling it, that Michigan can hold up defensively in the secondary. Penn State, on the other hand, at first glance, I think they're getting knocked this week for having a bad pass defense. They've given up 262 yards passing per game. That is number 102 in the nation. So if you just look at that stat and that's it, Penn State's 102nd in pass defense. Michigan should be able to take advantage of that, but not so fast. Opponents are only completing 49% of their passes with 5 touchdowns and 5 picks against Penn State. Penn State is actually 7th in the nation in pass efficiency defense. Why are teams throwing for so much yardage? Because they throw the ball constantly. Penn State is giving up 45 pass attempts per game. Teams are throwing the ball more against Penn State than any team in the nation. They're giving up 45 pass attempts in the nation. That's number 1 in the nation in pass attempts given up per game because Penn State's playing from in front, and they've also played a few passing teams. So it's impossible for me to point out any particular key to the game because I think the keys to the games are all over the field because I think, again, from a personal standpoint, talent standpoint, these are 2 very even teams. However, Penn State has yet to prove that they can play in the clutch against great competition, especially on the road. For the past 2 years going into this year, Penn State's 11-11. Now they've won 5 consecutive games. They went to Auburn. That was an impressive showing against a down Auburn team, no question. But to win that game at Jordan-Hare Stadium, 41-12, is impressive on the Penn State side. But Michigan is more proven. They won a Big Ten championship last year. They had to beat Ohio State to do it. They had to beat Penn State on the road to do it. They beat Wisconsin on the road, and they won a Big Ten championship game against Iowa. This is a group that is fully confident of who they are and what they need to do. Penn State, we will wait and see what they've got, what kind of mettle they have in the fourth quarter, if they can make it a 4-quarter game. If we're going to point to one thing, though, the Michigan pass rush on Sean Clifford is extremely important here. Penn State, we talked about the run blocking and the improved offensive line play. Well, the most important matchup is for them to protect Sean Clifford. Michigan is 4th in the nation right now with 22 sacks, and I know that a ton of them came against a poor Indiana offensive line with 8 sacks in that game last weekend. But even if you take away the 8 sacks, Michigan is still 20th in the nation in sacks, and they're taking on a Penn State offensive line that has given up just 7 sacks in 5 ball games. Penn State, Michigan, Wolverines a 6.5-point favorite. You can get my prediction on Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV, And more than my picks, shoot, you get the picks from 15 of our finest media contributors, as well as our Discord link where you can talk college football 24/7, 365. And we will see you next time with more predictions, more content right here at the Voice of College Football.